My daughter said my hearing aids ruined the wedding photos. She never knew what I overheard before I left. My name is Frank Doyle. I'm 70 years old. I spent 34 years underwriting commercial loans for a regional bank in Pittsburgh, the last 12 of them as Senior Vice President of Risk. I know what a liar sounds like even when he's smiling at you across a conference table. I never expected to need that skill at my own daughter's wedding. If you're new here, hit subscribe, tell me in the comments where you're watching from tonight, and get comfortable. This one takes a turn you won't see coming. The venue was a restored mansion outside Sewickley, the kind with ivy on the brick and a ballroom that cost more per hour than my first house cost outright. My daughter Claire looked luminous in her mother's altered veil. Her mother, my late wife, Rosalind, would have wept with joy and probably scolded me for wearing brown shoes with a gray suit. I'd worn my hearing aids that day the way I wear them every day, small, modern, nearly invisible unless you're looking. Claire's soon-to-be mother-in-law, Diana Ashworth Reyes, was not looking. She was staring directly at them during the formal photo lineup, lips pressed thin. "Frank," she said, loud enough for the photographer and half the wedding party to hear, "those devices are catching the light terribly in every shot. Would you mind removing them for the photos, or perhaps standing toward the back? We want the pictures to look clean." She said clean the way you'd say a stain needed treating. Claire's face went tight with embarrassment. Not for me, I realized later, but for the moment itself, for having a mother-in-law who'd say such a thing out loud. She didn't correct Diana. Nobody did. I smiled, said it was no trouble at all, and stepped toward the back row for the photographs, my hearing aids still in. Humiliation, quiet and complete. I want to tell you I felt fury. Mostly, I felt the specific ache of being 70 years old and reduced to an accessory that didn't photograph well. I thought about the day I got fitted for my first pair, 4 years after Rosalind died, sitting alone in an audiologist's office listening to birdsong through a window I hadn't realized I could no longer hear. I thought about how proud Claire had been of me for finally going, how she'd sat beside me at the fitting and squeezed my hand when the world came back into focus, sharp and full again. She used to call them my superpower, back before a woman with a marble ballroom and a discerning eye for photographs decided they were something to be hidden at the back of a room instead. What Diana Ashworth Reyes never bothered to learn about me is that my hearing aids aren't the cheap analog kind from 30 years ago. They're modern digital devices with directional microphones and a room loop receiver, calibrated by an audiologist who understood that after decades in noisy loan committee meetings, I needed to hear a whisper across a crowded table just as clearly as the man sitting beside me. Standing at the back of a photograph, as it turns out, is an excellent place to hear an entire room. During cocktail hour, I drifted near the terrace doors with a club soda, unremarkable, invisible in the way older men in gray suits often are at their own family's weddings. That's when my hearing aids picked up Diana and the best man, Trent, tucked behind a pillar 20 feet away, voices low, certain nobody could hear them over the string quartet. "Bennett's margin call hits Thursday," Trent said. "If the fund doesn't cover it, the SEC inquiry becomes public before the honeymoon's even over." "Claire signs the guarantor paperwork tomorrow," Diana said. "Her father's manufacturing shares as collateral, structured as a family investment loan. Bennett explained it as routine estate planning. She trusts him completely. It closes before anyone looks too closely." I stood very still, club soda sweating in my hand, and listened to the rest of it. Bennett's hedge fund position had collapsed months earlier. Federal regulators were already circling. The wedding, the honeymoon, the whole gleamin' production was scaffolded and built to get Claire's signature on a guarantee before she understood what she was signing. Using my family's business shares as the collateral, nobody had asked my permission to pledge. I didn't confront them. 34 years of underwriting taught me that men and women caught mid-scheme don't confess. They escalate. And I wasn't about to hand Diana Ashworth Reyes a public scene to spin into a bitter old man's jealousy at his daughter's wedding. I found Claire near the cake table, kissed her forehead, told her I was tired and heading home early, same as any aging father might. She hugged me and whispered that she loved me. I left before the first dance. In my car in the gravel lot, I called Marcus Webb, still head of commercial risk at my old bank, and the man I'd trained 20 years earlier. Marcus, it's Frank. I need you to flag any pending collateral filing tied to Ashworth Capital or Bennett Ashworth Reyes before Thursday. I have reason to believe fraudulent collateral is about to be pledged without full disclosure to the guarantor. Frank, is this personal? It's my daughter's shares, I said, which makes it both. Marcus didn't need convincing twice. By Wednesday morning, the loan committee had frozen the filing pending verification, standard due diligence, nothing dramatic, just enough friction to stop a signature from closing before Claire understood what she'd be signing. I also called my attorney, Priya Malhotra, and had her draft a formal notice asserting my ownership stake couldn't be pledged as collateral by anyone but me. Claire called me Thursday afternoon, confused and a little frightened. The bank had contacted her directly about irregularities in a loan document she barely remembered agreeing to review. I told her the truth, all of it, what I'd overheard at the terrace doors, what Marcus had confirmed, what my shares actually meant, and why nobody had the right to pledge them without my signature. He told me it was routine, she said, voice small. He said you'd understand, since you used to do this kind of thing. I do understand, I told her. That's exactly the problem. The SEC inquiry into Bennett's fund went public within the month, margin calls he couldn't cover, investor money that had quietly vanished into positions nobody had approved. Diana's carefully built scaffolding collapsed loudly and publicly, the kind of collapse that doesn't stay contained to a family dinner table. Claire filed for annulment before the honeymoon suite deposit had even cleared. The Ashworth Reyes name, so proud in every wedding program, started disappearing from the society pages entirely. I won't pretend there wasn't a small human satisfaction in watching a family that called my hearing aids embarrassing get exposed by exactly what those hearing aids let me hear. Mostly, though, I just felt relief that my daughter was safe. Claire moved back into her old bedroom for a while, quiet and rebuilding. She started asking me questions about loans, about collateral, about how to actually read a contract before signing it. Some Sundays now she comes by just to talk shop, the way I used to talk with Rosalind. Last week she told me she's applying to business school. I cried in the kitchen after she left, where she couldn't see it. Marcus tells me the loan file is still sitting in a compliance archive somewhere downtown, a quiet paper trail nobody at Ashworth Capital ever expected an old man's phone call to create. Priya says the annulment paperwork went through without contest, Bennett's attorneys apparently having far larger fires to put out than a challenged marriage. I don't ask for updates on him anymore, not once, not even out of curiosity. Some stories simply end the moment the person in them finally stops mattering to you at all. Claire asked me once, months after, how I'd managed to hear a whispered conversation across an entire crowded terrace over a live string quartet. I told her the truth. I'd spent 34 years training myself to catch what people didn't want caught, long before any hearing aid ever helped the effort along. The devices just made the old skill sharper. They never replaced it. I still wear my hearing aids every single day, unapologetically, in every photograph anyone wants to take. Diana Ashworth Reyes never apologized, never will, and I've stopped waiting on it. People will look at the wires behind your ears, the cane in your hand, the quiet way you stand at the back of a room, and decide that's the whole of you. Let them decide it. Sometimes the thing they mock is the very thing that saves the people you love, and they never see it coming until the paperwork is already frozen and the truth is already out in the open, right where it belonged from the start. I'm the old man whose hearing aids ruined the photographs. I'm also the man who heard exactly what needed hearing, right when it mattered most. If you stayed with me all the way to the end, hit that like button, subscribe so the next story finds you, and tell me in the comments below exactly where you're watching from tonight. Take care of each other out there, especially the quiet ones nobody thinks are really listening.